As usual, let us begin with a prayer. Harihi Om Ramanujadaya Patram Jnana Vairagya Bhushanam Srimad Venkatanarthayam Vande Vedanta Deshikam Sada Shivasaramambam Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Varyantam Vande Guru Paramparam Guru Brahma Guru Vishnu Guru Devo Maheshwaraha Guru Sakshat Parabrahma Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Gurave Sarva Lokanam Visaje Bhavaroginaha Nidaye Sarva Vidyanam Sri Dakshina Murthaye Namaha Harihi Om Tat Sat Sri Narayanarpanamastu. Sai Ram and welcome to week 3 of an exploration of the wonderful Bhaja Govindam, one of the greatest works to have been gifted to mankind by one of the greatest acharyas ever, Sri Adi Shankaracharya. And what better way to spend Guru Purnima than to listen to one of the gurus who is trying to move mankind from the road of Dvaitam, duality, to the road of Advaitam, non-duality. And the entire stanzas, be it the first 12, the Dwadasaka Manjarika Stotram, or the subsequent 14 of Chaturdasa Manjarika Stotram, its intention is one. That is to make man realize that leave the others and move to the self. Hence, from duality to non-duality, right? So, we've already looked at in the last 2 weeks the first 7 verses, right? So just to refresh your memory, I'm just going to recite them and then we'll go on to this week, verse 8, 9, and 10, right? So when we finish this week, we would have finished 1/3 of the Bhaja Govindam stanzas, 31. So we finished 10. In the remaining weeks, we will cover the remaining stanzas. Bhaja Govindam, Bhaja Govindam, Govindam Bhaja Mudamate, Samprapte Sanihite Kale, Nahi Nahi Rakshati Dukhin Karane, Muda Jahaidanagama Treshnam, Guru Sat Buddhim Manasi Vitreshnam, Yallabhashe Nija Karmopatam, Vittam Tena Vinodaya Chetam, Naristhana Bharana Videsham, Drasthva Magamoha Vesham, Etanmam Savisari Vikaram, Manasi Vichintaya Varam Varam, Nalini Dalagata Jalamati Tharalam, Tattvajjivitamati Sayachapalam, Vidhi Bhyadhya Vimana Grastham, Lokam Shokam Hatam Chasamastam, Yavat Vitho Parjana Sakta, Stavanni Parivaro Rakta, Paschat Jivati Jarjara Dehe Vartam Kopina Prachati Gehe Yavat Pavano Nivasati Dehe Tavat Prachati Kushalam Gehe Gatavati Vayau Deha Paye Manasi Vichintaya Varam Varam Balastavat Krida Sakta Tarunastavat Taruni Sakta Vridhastavat Chinta Sakta Parame Brahmane Kopina Sakta Bhaja Govindam Bhaja Govindam Govindam Bhaja Mudamate. Why? Because Samprapte Sannihite Kale, when the appointed time of death comes, Nahi Nahi Rakshati Dukhin Karani, everything that you have, everything that that has been accumulated by you, everyone that is around you, nothing will save you except your punya karmas. Right? So that's wonderful. Verse 7, Shankara was talking about attachments, right? Balastavat, Tarunastavat, then Vriddastavat. Then he says at the end of the day, no one is attached to the Parabrahman. Now, verse 8 is asking you to think about that. He says, Kate Kanta, Kaste Putraha, Samsaroyam Ativa Vichitraha, Kasyatvam Ka Kutaha Yahataha, Stavam Chintaya Tadidha Brahata. Kate Kanta, Kaste Putra, Samsaroyam Ativa Vichitra, Kasyatvam Ka Kutaha Yahata. Stavam chintaya tadidha vrata. Kate Kanta. Who is your wife? Kaste putraha. Who is your son? Samsaroyam mathiva vichitraha. This samsara of life is indeed very strange. It is an enigma. Kasyatvam. Who are you? Of whom are you? Kutaha yahataha. Where have you come from? Stavam, Statvam, Chintaya, Tadidaha Brahata. Think about this, oh brother. Bratha, right? Means brother. It's one of the words that is often used by Krishna when he's referring to Arjuna, right? But Arjuna, of course, always refers to him as, Krishna, as in Mitra, as in friends. So anyway, that is this verse, right? Who is your wife? Who is your son? Have you thought about this life, this strangeness, the enigma that is life? Of whom are you? Where have you come from? Please, oh brother, think about this, ponder about this, right? So if you want a value to attach to this, it is truth or satyam. Truth is actually detachment, right? So the value of detachment as the fundamental truth, the significance of life is the truth of detachment, which of course Maya comes, completely makes us delusional and makes us attached to something that is impermanent, right? So in this verse 8, the great Acharya addresses the people or the sect of people who are totally engrossed in worldly life from a bondage perspective. So this verse actually requires intellectual inquiry. When he says, Kate Kantaha, who's your wife? He's not talking about your wife as in your married partner, right? He is talking in a broader context as who are the partners in life, yes, in business, yes, in employment, yes, in games, yes, in music, yes. Who is this person? In a larger context, it means everybody we work with in terms of a partnership, right? Not just the marital life. Anyone you look to for comfort, right? Son, child, people who look to us for comfort. Now, this is where he's saying, think, who are they? Think, who are you? From where have all of us come? And where are we going? Think about this. That's why he says, Tavam chintaya tadiha vrataha. Think about this, he's saying. Have we thought about those things? Now, I can understand, people may say, even if we think about all these things, brother, where is it going to take us? Well, we may not have all the answers. Okay, that's fine. I totally accept that. We may not have all the answers. However, we cannot continue to live in total ignorance. That is something that as a human birth that we have got, we cannot afford to let that happen. Why? Then again, birth again that, no. So in this life itself, you must try and come out of it, Shankara is saying, right? So we cannot live in ignorance. Without knowing anything about ourselves, our true self, and our close relationships, things are bound to go wrong. We are bound to go wrong. That is why when our actions boomerang on us, I told you, your thoughts, your words, your actions, when you throw, it's like a boomerang. It goes back and it comes back and hits you with that same astounding accuracy. Words, thoughts, and action. That's Traikarana Suddhi, right? So when that happens, what do we do? Now think about this. when something goes wrong, what is the immediate reaction? Immediate reaction is, this fellow is the cause of it. This person is the cause of it. If that thing didn't happen, this thing wouldn't have happened. If this thing didn't happen, it would not have reflected on me. Always when something goes wrong, we want to blame others. So Shankara is saying self-inquiry, right? Shankara is saying maintain a dispossessed attitude towards our possessions. Even while we have them, even while we are enjoying them, have a dispossessive attitude towards them. Now, this is where you need to pay close attention, right? Sankara is not saying don't have attachment to objects. Sankara is saying there's a difference between objects of attachment and the very attachment itself. So he's saying your attachments need to go, whether it is to a person, a thing, an object. That attachment needs to go, not that thing, not that person, not that object. So very, very important here, right? Attachments need to go, but not the objects of attachment. When you can do that, then you can enjoy that person, you can enjoy that thing, you can enjoy that object, anything, because you treat it with what we call samachittaha. That means the same equanimity of thoughts is attached to those. So the problem is basically our attitude, not the objects, not the people, not the things around. The problem is with our attitude. Remember, I said your attitude determines your altitude in the world of spirituality, right? Your attitude determines your altitude in the world of spirituality. Shankara says by giving up people, by giving up things, you don't achieve anything. Yeah, distancing from yourself from people, distancing yourself from things, distancing yourself from objects, very easy. But maintaining a spirit of detachment from those things, not distancing, but maintaining a spirit of detachment, that is difficult, and that is what you must try and achieve. So I don't understand this, brother. So what's the difference? What's the difference? You say, you cannot be attached to things. So how is it we can have the things without being attached? That is the trick. The idea of dropping the minus, you try and do this little, inward inflection, right? Remember I said last week, introvertedness. Analyze all the things that you're attached to. Analyze all the people that you're attached to, all the things that you're attached to, all the objects that you're attached to. And then think, if those things were not around, how would your life be? There are two things here, right? Externally, how would it be? Internally, how would it be? Right? Everything, everybody, every person, every object has its own distinct individuality. Even inanimate objects, they have got energies and they are vibrating. You are also vibrating at a different level. So different people, they can be your wife, they can be your son, they can be your daughter, they can be anyone. They all have their own journey. They all come with their own distinct personalities. This is where the ability to accept everyone as an equal comes into play. But we don't do that. What do? We compare. We compare our sons, we compare our daughters, we compare our wives, you compare your husbands, you compare everyone with everyone else and say, why can't you be like that uncle's daughter? Why can't you be like that uncle's son? Look at that fellow. 9 A's he's got in his GCSEs. Look at you. 9 B's you've got. That's when you say, Nama, A is atrocious, B is best. See, it's a perspective, right? How you look at things. Anyway, so, the ability to accept and the awareness not to interfere over a certain boundary, that is intellectual inquiry, right? But we don't do that. We are doing everything that Shankara is saying don't do, right? So interference, right of interference, just because you're a parent, right? You give them the right support, give them the right nutrition, the right support structure, the right love, the right conditions, the right everything. But you cannot dictate. It's a difficult thing to do because at all stages of life, you've been dictated to, your father's been dictated to, your grandfather was dictated to. So naturally, by way of inheritance, you also dictate. But you are in this line of spirituality, your grandfather wasn't and your father wasn't. Maybe not to the extent that you are, right? So you engage in this intellectual inquiry, right? Accept people for what they are. Do not compare, because everybody is different, right? Then you will see an improvement in that relationship. That's why he's asking, Khate kantaha kaste putraha kutaha yahata. He's asking you, where have you come from? Go behind this significance. Remember, I said to you one last week or a week before, I said, always ask the question, why, when, how, where, how come? Right? We never, don't just accept things, right? You have to inquire intelligently. To inquire with intelligence, you need wisdom. To have wisdom, you need to control the mind. You see, everything is connected. That's why Swami says, very lovely, very short, very brief. He says, master the mind and become a mastermind. Yet what we do, we play the game called mastermind, but we don't master our mind. That's the problem, right? So Shankara is saying, objects remove the possessiveness. Keep the possession, but remove the possessiveness, right? Remove the greed, remove the desire. Once you remove all these externalities, then what you have, you will enjoy fully. You will enjoy the fruits of your labor, because you know it is not yours. You know it is going to someone else. You know life continues even after you. So everything does not revolve around you, and everything is not a be-all and end-all with you. So Shankara emphasizes in this verse 8 the need to reflect over this truth here and now. Here and now. You have to understand the urgency of the matter, right? There is no time to waste in just pursuing material ends. You know, because he says, unless you realize that the Atma does not have gender, the body has, right? At a gross level, you know, gross body, subtle body, right? At a gross body, yeah, gross level, you have a body. That body has a name. That body has hands, legs, and everything. It has some functionalities. When that prana ends, that body becomes from Shivam, which is energy, to Shavam, which is no energy. Shavam means dead body, corpse. At the subtle body, you move to a higher level of Jivatma. When at a universal level, you have Paramatma. The aim of this life is to get that Jivatma to merge with that Paramatma. Everything else is temporary. Anitya, right? So people come for different reasons into your life. People leave your life at different points. I mean, you have good friends who've been with you for a very long time, yes, but everybody is not the same, isn't it? You meet some people, for some time they are there, and then they're gone. And then for years and years and years, you don't meet them. Sometimes you think, oh my God, you know, this person, it's been years since I met him. He just came and then, you know, during a particular time, and then off he goes. That is called prarabdha, you know, karma. Remember, I said to you, when you surrender, he will send you help as and when you need it. Don't question that. Just surrender and you will see help coming. Prarabdha karma. We talk about karma. There are 4 types of karma, right? Prarabdha karma, sanchita karma, what you're doing now, kriyamana karma, and what is going to happen, agame karma. Or maybe karma is another topic we can investigate or explore at another stage. So your prarabdha means if it is going to happen, it will happen. Nothing or no one can stop it. So surrender. He's clearly telling. Think about this. Focus. The institution that is a family is a temporary structure to get you from one point to the other point. Remember the 4 ashramas in the first week I was saying. First you have to be a brahmachari. Then you have to become a grahastha. Then you have to become a vanapradishta. And then finally sannyasa. These 4 ashramas or stages of life must be experienced in order for you to reach the higher points, reach the higher levels, right? So instead of worrying about, you know, why aren't you doing this or why aren't you doing that, you know, wife, why are you not doing this? Husband, why are you not doing this? Why is it like this? Why is it like that? Let there be love. Let there be charity in your own. Let there be compassion. Let there be service. Let this be the basis of the relationship and not the fact that I am X's husband, X is Y's wife, B is A's son, and C is D's daughter. You know, as far as even that attachment must go, right? The next stage, the next verse, verse 9, I'm going to talk about attachment again from a different sense, right? So we become so attached and we become so dependent. So what happens? Attachment leads to dependency. Dependency leads to what? Expectations. Expectations lead to what? Disappointments. Disappointments lead to what? Anger. Anger leads to what? Animosity. back. So Shankara is saying, move away from this attachment, become detached. No detachment, no dependency. No dependency, no expectation. No expectation, no frustration. No frustration or no disappointment, no anger. No anger, no disappointment. How much easier can it be conveyed? Right? You know, anger is feeding someone else's emotions, not your own. So you should be wise. When somebody is angry, okay, just relax. Don't react, but respond. There's a clear distinction between reaction and responding. Reaction is where immediately you say something, immediately you do something. That's reaction. Response, there is a pausation between what the other person tells you or does to you and what you do in rethought. There is a pausation there, because that pausation gives you an opportunity to think, to inject this intellectual inquiry. So just because he says something bad about me, unless I accept it, it doesn't become true. Unless I accept it, it doesn't become true. So I don't accept. What you don't accept doesn't become part of you. Simple as that. Okay. So that is the truth I was saying earlier. The value is truth, right? So be optimistic like that, right? Unless you accept something of yourself, you don't become that. Just because someone says it, or many people say it. Unless you accept it, then it becomes you. So I'll tell you a story about a man. Once he was walking and he passed by a group of elephants. He looked at those elephants and then he was a bit confused. He said, hey, these huge creatures were actually held by a small rope that was tied round their legs onto a pole. Now he's thinking, how come all these elephants, they are huge fellows, right? But they are just being tied with this rope around one of their legs, which is tied to the post. And then another elephant is tied to another post. And then another elephant is tied to another post. You know, like that. So he is wondering, what is happening? You know, there's no chains, there's no cages, right? And it's really obvious that the elephants could at any point in time break away from the strings or from the rope. But for some reason, they were just standing there as though they were in complete captivity. Now, this fellow couldn't understand that, right? Then he was looking for the trainer. He saw the trainer nearby and he went and asked him, can you tell me why those huge elephants, they're just standing there when you and I know all they need to do is just exert a bit of force and they'll break away and leave. This is where you need to pay attention, my dear friends. The trainer said, from the time they were very, very young, we have used the same rope to tie them. And obviously, when they are small, they try to break away and they couldn't because the rope was very strong. And we use the same thing as they are growing. So they have been conditioned to believe, that the rope can still hold them, that they will never be able to break free. Oh my God, the man was so amazed. He said, elephants being held by a mere rope? What's the lesson there for you and me? The lesson here is conditioning. Conditioning. So we need to decondition ourselves. You know, like when you want to go for a diet or when you want to start something, the first thing that happens is the deconditioning, isn't it? The reversing. That can only happen with intellectual inquiry. And that is what Shankara is trying to say in this verse. We become so conditioned in our thinking, in our way of life, right, that we think, oh, it can't be done. It is not possible, you know. But if you look at the same thing from a different angle, from a different perspective, then you will see it in a different way. You know, Swami says the word or the expression, God is nowhere. If you look at it properly and move the W from the where to the no, it becomes God is now here. Paradigm shift. That's what you need. You need to decondition your way of thinking. Then perhaps, you know, you will come out of the thought that I am not the be all, I am not the end all, you know. Effort must be made, right? Initiatives must be put for you to detach yourself from everything that binds you. Begin with your own self, begin, then extend that to the family, the friends, everybody. I'm not saying don't live your life, right? I'm saying, remember I said possessions and being possessive are two different things. So learn to enjoy what you have, learn to enjoy with whoever you are without being possessive, because possessiveness again leads to dependency, leads to expectations, leads to disappointment, leads to hurt, becomes anger, becomes animosity, and it's a vicious cycle. So you need to break away. You look at the plant, plant, even though the plant is thriving in water, it never gets wet. This is what Shankara is trying to say. This symbolizes the nature. A true jnani or a realized person always is in the state of bliss, like Buddha was, untouched by people, untouched by things, untouched by objects around him. And that is the characteristic of the world. These all come in between to test you, right? So it's not an easy road. Yes, I understand that. It is a long process. Yes, I understand that as well. But I'm saying you can begin the process today. Start the process today. We all can't change overnight, but we can begin the process of changing overnight. And that is what I'm trying to do. And change overnight here, what I mean by overnight here is this birth, right? Don't wait until you take many births to understand and to do this. That's why Krishna told Arjuna, Manushya Janma Dhurlabham. That means it is very fortunate for you to be born as a human person, because this is the next state. If you use this life properly, from Manusha, you become Purusha. Manusha Janma, you attain Purushahood, right? So there are 3 or 4 things that Shankara wants you to think about this particular verse 8, right? Number 1, intelligent inquiry. That is the only antidote for the follies of delusion, right? Intelligent inquiry. Secondly, he's saying family is not your final destination, right? Family is not your final destination. Thirdly, he's saying the body is but one clod of mud. So don't focus too much on the body. And he says, lastly, we are travelers in the world. We go into a coach, meet many people, travel with them, and everybody exits at different levels. And we too will exit at one time or when our station or destination comes. Therefore, your entry into this world was alone. Your exit from this world will also be alone. In between, all these relations, all these friends, all this family, yes, you need them. Being possessive and having possessions. That's where the intelligent inquiry comes. You can test this out. Actually, you should test it out and see, can you, right, when you get a chance, right, to someone you don't know, introduce yourself to a stranger, okay? Introduce yourself to a stranger without any specific personal reference, like you can't tell your name, you can't tell your form or your gender or your age. You cannot refer to people who are related to you or anything that gives you away. And you do that, because that will tell you how attached you are. Oh, of course, if you can do that, then it tells you how detached you are. Very good. On the path of jnanihood. Aham jnani. This once, Shankara in his long travels, he was in Mount Kailash. As he was walking, suddenly he saw a yogi in front of him, right? And the yogi asked him the same question. Kasyatvam kutaha yahataha. Said, who are you? From where have you come? What are you? Shankara burst forth with what we now know as Nirvana Shatkam. Nirvana Shatkam. Nirvana means bliss or mukti at the end of the day. Shatakam means a verse, 6 verse, stotra. Right? He said, Mano buddhi ahankara chittani naham, naham. Nacha stotra jihve, nacha grani netre, nacha yoma, bhuvir, tejo, vayuhu, chithananda rupam, shivoham. Mano buddhi ahankara chittani naham. He's saying, look, I am not the mind, I am not the intellect, I am not the ego, nor am I the memory. Na aham, not me. Nacha stotra jikve, nacha grana netre. He says, I am not the five senses. Nacha vyoma, bhumir, tejo, vayu. I am not the earth. I am not the space. I am not the fire, water or wind. I am Chitananda Rupam. I am the form of Chit Ananda. Chitananda Rupam, consciousness of bliss. Shivoham, Shivoham. I am Shiva. I am Shiva. That yogi was none other than Lord Shiva himself. Of course, Shankara was a gift from Shiva of himself. But even though Shankara did not know that was Shiva, he exactly knew what he was and where he was going. And then that yogi tells him, go forth for another 2-3 miles and you will meet the person you are looking for. This was when Shankara was journeying through the mountains looking for his guru. So he was tested. Even the greatest acharyas can be tested by the divine to see whether they are focused on that path of Advaitam, complete understanding that I am different from me, that inner I. So he was tested. Beautifully, he said, I am not all this. I am, at the end of the day, consciousness of bliss. I am that, the eternal Shiva. I am that, the eternal Shiva. Nirvana Shatkam. Nirvana Shatkam. When you have time, you can listen to this. It's beautiful. But when you are listening to it, make sure there is no disturbance, right? Make sure you switch off the lights. Make sure there is a little candle. Look into the flames and you listen to this and you live, especially when he says, Chitananda Rupam. Chitananda Rupam. Shivoham, Shivoham. When you listen to that and you look into the flame, if you do it right, it can take you places, right? If you don't do it right, you'll remain in the same place. So, entirely your call. Okay, my friends, that is verse 8, right? Now let's move on to verse 9. Verse 9 is again a beautiful verse, one of my favorite lines. Satsangatvam nitsangatvam nitsangatve nirmohatvam nirmohatve nischalatatvam nischalatatvam jivan mukti satsangatve nitsangatvam nitsangatve nirmohatvam nirmohatve nischalatatvam Nischalatatvam jivan mukti Bhaja Govindam Bhaja Govindam. What's the meaning of this? Satsanga, satsang, we use this word very, very regularly in the Sai movement, as they also do in most other spiritual movements. Satsanga. Sat means truth or good. Sangha means the gathering together of like-minded people for a common objective, same goals. So what does satsanga must do is lead to nitsanga. So the attachment of good company, good people must lead to the quality of detachment, which must be developed as a result of the attachment. Remember, I said to you, you cannot detach something that is not attached. So to engender the quality of detachment, you must first become attached. Then through that attachment, develop detachment. Nisangatve, nirmohatvam. Okay, so what happens if I develop detachment? Well, nitsangatve, once you have developed your detachment from the sangha of people, of things, of objects, then nirmohatvam. Moha is your moha vasanas, your desires, your bundles of desires, your wants, not so much your needs, your wants. Then this detachment will give you this quality of nirmohatvam. Nirmohatvam means nirmohatvam, you move away from these bundles of desires. Okay. Assuming I move away from my desires, then what happens? Nirmohatve, once you've done that, nischalatatvam. Nischalatatvam is that which does not change. That which is the immutable reality. Nirmohatve, nischalatatvam. Then, okay. So what if you then connect to that one thing that doesn't change, that immutable reality that you're talking? Nischalatattvam, Jivan Mukti. Once you hit that note, once you manage to cure the cause of delusions and know that one unchanging truth, that is Parabrahman. Remember in verse 7, he says, Parame Brahmane Kopina Sakta. Attach yourself to that one thing, he says. Detach yourself from everything, but attach yourself to the one. Once you destroy that delusions and you cut the ties that bind you, then mukti is within reach. Mukti is within reach. So, first thing is, you need satsanga, company of good people, people who can mold your character, people who can guide you, people who can advise you, people who can counsel you and move you from one state of consciousness to a better state of consciousness, and then move you from that state of consciousness to an improved state of consciousness, and its complete evolution in your spiritual path, right? So there was this guru, and he had one disciple. Now, you must understand, there is gurukulas, and the gurus have many disciples or shishyas, right? Like Guru Dronacharya, he had an ashrama or gurukula, and of course the entire Kaurava and the entire Pandavas were his students. But then there are some gurus, like the great Parashurama, who will take only one person at different times, right? Like Bhishmacharya was Parashurama's shishya, disciple. Then of course Karna was also his disciple at different times. So here, this guru had one disciple whom he taught, the scriptures and all the teachings, dharmic injunctions, everything, right? Meritorious actions, all of that over a period of time. And then it came to the last stage where he had to teach, the final thing. And he said, he called the disciple and he said, for this lesson, you have to go to the other guru about 20 miles down the road. This guru is there. You go and learn from him. Now, the disciple could not understand why his guru was sending him to another guru for the final lesson when he knows for a matter of fact that his guru is far more knowledgeable and, more superior in spirituality than the other guru. So he's thinking, why, sending me to a person who's of a lower caliber in terms of master or mastery of knowledge. So guru said, no, you go and, you be there for 2 days. You learn what you can and come back. So the Shishya went. He went to this ashrama. And when he reached that ashrama, he saw that the guru had finished instructing, right? And he'd finished instructing. Then, of course, he went on to start serving the food to all his disciples. And after the guru had served the food, the guru started to wash all the dishes and, arranged it. So he introduced himself and the guru said, okay, next week you can sleep there and then tomorrow I'll talk to you. Next morning, the disciple got up early and he wanted to go and wait for the guru. When he went, he heard, sounds coming from the kitchen area. So when he went there, he saw the guru washing the dishes that he had washed the night before. And he was thinking, why? He already washed them the night before. So why is he repeating that process? Why is he washing those things again? I mean, from last night to this morning, nobody would have come in, no dust because everything was closed. So he was wondering. And then, of course, he spent the day in that ashram watching the guru and all that. And then he left. He came back to his own guru and the guru said, so tell me, what have you learned? He said, Guru, this is what I've observed. He said, I observed all the details, what this guru was doing and everything, but I couldn't understand why he washes the dishes at night, arranges them properly, neatly, and in the morning he takes all of them and he washes them again. I can't understand. Why should he do that? Because, it just doesn't make sense. Then this guru is telling him, the lesson is, he's telling you how to clean your mind. He says, you cleanse your mind regularly. You must cleanse your mind regularly. But between those cleansing sessions, your mind starts to collect dust. Dust here is all these things that you see. Dust here is all these things that you hear. Dust here is all the things that you say. Dust here is all the things that you feel. All this dust is collected in there. So the mind that is meant to be clear and untouched by all this becomes foggy and muddy. So where is that understanding? So the Guru, by his very actions, is saying, just like you wash the plates again and again to keep it clean, you must engage in thoughts, words, and actions to keep your mind consistently clean, constantly and consistently clean. Then, and only then, your goal of ensuring that the mind is constantly kept in a clear line becomes a reality. Otherwise, you become entangled with your duties, your worldly duties. You become entangled with all the people that is in your life. You become entangled with all the issues, all the things, all the objects, other activities of the world. And then you move away from yourself further and further and further. Every living day, you should become a little bit closer to that self and a bit more detached from the rest. So satsang of good and wise people is absolutely necessary, right? And of course, you need the master. That's why, Shankara says, he's reflecting on his own life. He says, only when the Shishya is ready, the master will reveal himself. That's why, when Shiva tested him and he came out with the Nirvana Shatakam, Shiva told him, go there, you will find who you're looking for. And that's why he found Govinda Pada, who became his guru. I say, divine assurance as and when you need. Sarva Yoga Kshema Karishyami. I will look after your entire Yoga Kshema. So why do you worry? Why do you take things into your hand and then suffer the consequences of that acceptance and accountability? Leave it to me. But how many of us can leave it? Leave it and let it be. So we say, let go and let God. The only thing between go and God is the word D. What is that D? Detachment. Finish. There you go. Right? So the company of the good, satsanga, is the first step for you to self-realize. Path to self-realization begins with satsanga, because then it leads you to nitsanga. Right? Remember, if you begin now, we might make a head start. Otherwise, we don't know how many more janmahas, punat janmaha. Right? And what does Swami say? Swami says, show me your friends and I will tell you who you are. Sankara says, tell me your company and I'll tell you your character. So this thing about that guru story, right? How he washes the dishes and how you should clean your mind regularly, right? You look at how all of you must know, or most of you, right? Majority of you will know about this Hanuman Chalisa. You know Hanuman Chalisa? What is the first line? First line, how does it begin? Sri Guru Charana Saroja Raja Nijamana Mukura Sudhari. Just that one line, right? Focus is that. What does that line mean? What does that line mean? He says, after cleansing the mirror of my mind with the pollen dust from the holy Guru's feet, only then I continue. Hanuman Chalisa, how many times you have said it, how many times you've listened to it, how many times you've followed this, whether it's in your house or somebody else's house or in the mandirs or in the temples. Have you ever reflected on this? The first verse. Right? Once Krishna became ill on the river banks of Yamuna. And of course, they brought all types of, medicine men. Finally, when Rishi was passing by, right? And he said, the only thing that can cure him is dust. Dust from the feet of his devotees who only know him for the love from their own hearts. So everybody was looking at each other, where are we going to find this? And then they heard the sound of a flute coming from a distance. And the Rishi said, that's your answer. Go to the gopikas and the people who look after the cows, the cowherds. Wipe their feet. Bring it and rub it on Krishna. And he will be fine. And they did that exactly. So Krishna also says, as I have been bathed by the dust of divine devotion from these clear people, anybody who takes that dust from me and wipes it on them becomes in the same mental clarity that I have. You will also have. Hence the Hanuman Chalisa, Sri Guru Charan Saroja Raja Nijamana Mukura Sudhari. Beautiful, right? I mean, if you look at people, right? I once went to a friend's house, and he was showing me his cleaning products. He had about 20 different products, right? One for the floor, one for the surfaces, one for the window, one for the door, everything had cleaning product. So for mere inanimate objects, we can have so many cleansing products, cleaning products, right? Can you imagine what product must we be using to cleanse our mind and our heart? 5 products. Let me tell you now, 5 products you need. What are those 5 products? Satyam, Dharma, Shanti, Prema, Ahimsa. These are the 5 cleaning products you need to cleanse your mind and to purify your heart. I want you to reflect and think. Am I, this is you thinking about yourself, right? Am I in the company of highly empowered people all the time? If I am, how are they influencing me? Right? So think about this. Am I in the company of highly empowered people? And if so, how are these people empowering me, influencing me? Then a higher level of inquiry where you say, am I influencing people around me in the same way? That is a more intelligent inquiry. Am I influencing people in my own way? You see, because sometimes you have to take lessons and you have to apply it yourself. So it's called testing the waters. Testing the waters. Then only you can make steps to remedy it, So Ramakrishna Paramahamsa was always like this, He'll always tell his disciples and his people, you can test me. You don't have to take everything I say as the divine gospel. How you test me? Right? You must not believe me unless you are completely in faith of what I say and what I do. Your faith must be complete. Shraddha must be there. And often he has said, because of his spiritual experiences, with Kalima and all of that, right? He says his entire physiology has changed. His nervous system has undergone a complete change. That the moment anything that is metallic, whether it's gold, platinum, silver, copper, anything, right? It makes him ill. So one day, what happened? He had gone to Calcutta. And of course, our Vivekananda, which of course all of you know, his disciple, right? Vivekananda went and put one coin under his mattress. So a few days later, Ramakrishna came back. And when he sat on the bed, he suddenly, as though he was stung by a bee, he went, oh my God, you could see the suffering, you could see the pain. And then, somebody said, okay, Bhagavan, let us see what is on it. And when they, of course, took off the mattress, and they found that one coin. So you can test the master, but remember, the master also can test you, right? So it works both ways, right? Now, Vivekananda, on the other hand, also was often tested by Ramakrishna. So what happened once, when Vivekananda went to see him, right? See, Swami also does this, right? And all of you know about all the different stories that devotees have said when, the Swami calls them and then completely ignores them. So same thing happened here with Vivekananda and Ramakrishna. Vivekananda went before him, but Ramakrishna completely ignored him and went on doing whatever. No greeting, not a word was uttered between them. 1 week later, Vivekananda came back, same thing. 2 weeks later, he came back again. After the 4th or 5th visit, Vivekananda noticed that there was no thawing of the master's frigid attitude. The master was the same, complete ignorance of completely ignoring Vivekananda. So when he came back for the 5th time, Ramakrishna Guru said to him, Vivekananda, I have not exchanged a single word with you in all this time, right? In all your visits. And yet you still chose to come, right? And Vivekananda said, I come to Dakshineshwar because I love you and want to see you. I do not come here to hear your words. That's when Ramakrishna embraced him and he said, I was only testing you. I wanted to see whether you're coming here for me or whether you're coming here for your own inner strength. Because anyone else would not have put up with such indifference and they would have left, but not you, Vivekananda. And that is why you are destined to become great. So most of the time when we lead, or when we go to see Swami, or when we're in the company of Swami, do we look for something from them externally, or are we saying merely by me being in this presence of yourself is good enough? I have got the darshan, that is more than enough. Swami says ABC, isn't it? You know what is ABC? ABC is avoid bad company. Again, satsangatam, right? And Swami also said, life without devotion puts you deep down the ocean. Let me say it again, right? Life without devotion puts you deep in the ocean. He also says, right, God is in all men and women. But if you look, because he's using a singularity here, all men are not in God. That is why they suffer. God is in all, but all men are not in God. That is why they suffer, right? You can choose this life, whether you become attached to God, G-O-D, or you reverse that and you become that, G-O-D or D-O-G, you choose, right? So you have to engage in something called Sat, Chit, Ananda. Sat is truth, Chit, thoughts, Ananda is bliss. Like you sing the bhajan, isn't it? What's that bhajan you sing? Satyam Jnanam Anantam Brahma. That one line you sing 4 times, 4 different tunes, right? Satyam Jnanam Anantam Brahma. This 4 words is telling you in the form of a bhajan what you should do. Remember I said bhajana, janana, manana, tarana, right? The bhajana, janana must reach the people, right? When it reaches the people, it must engage their manana, their thoughts. And once it engages the thought, it must go to tarana, level of action. Fantastic. Satyam, truth, jnanam, wisdom, anantam, bliss, brahma, final destination. So always engage in the truth. Truth in what you think, truth in what you say, truth in what you do, truth in what you feel. Because when you constantly engage with that truth, then you develop jnanam or wisdom. When you constantly vibrate at a wisdom level, then you are always in a state of constant bliss, anantam. And when you vibrate in constant bliss, there is no other place for you to go beyond that except reach Brahma. Right? If you want one takeaway from verse 9, right? Satsangatvam, nitsangatve, nitsangatvam, nirmohatve, nirmohatve, nishchalatvam, nishchalatvam, jivan mukti. That one word is anything or anyone that makes you spiritually weak, physically weak, intellectually weak, reject as poison. Who said that? Vivekananda said that. Anything or anyone that can make you weak, physically, intellectually, spiritually, you reject as poison. Then you're on the right track. Then you're on the right road. Okay? Now, that brings us to verse 10. Vayasi gate ka kama vikaraha. Susne nira ka kasaraha. Shine vitte ka parivaraha. Yante tatve ka samsaraha. Vayasi gate ka kama vikara. Suske nire ka kasara. Shine vitte ka parivara. Yante tatve ka samsara. Bhaja Govindam. Vayasi gate, when you become old and infirm and filled with illness, where is that youthful desire that has, compelled you to one way of life? Yeah, that desire, your vasanas, what happens to it? Suske nire ka kasaraha. If a lake that does not have water anymore, will it be continuously called a lake? No. From a beautiful lake, it becomes a barren land. Shine Vitteka Parivaraha. The same thing. Where are all your relatives? Parivar, where all your relatives and all your friends when all your wealth and fame is gone. Jnanate tatve ka samsaraha. Once you know the truth, then where is this samsara? Once you realize the truth, then samsara becomes totally unimportant to you. You can just move on. Right? So there was a rich man once who had a son. And rich man worked hard. He built his business and then he became very rich, very affluent. But his son was very irresponsible. And that's why I said to you earlier, everybody has got their own journeys to make. Right? So when he became, old enough, he inherited the father's business and the wealth and everything. But because of his irresponsibility, because of his bad company, ABC, avoid bad company, right? He spent all his father's money, fortune. He had a wife, he had 2 children. And then, of course, because of irresponsibility, they also left him, right? Then he became a pauper. Of course, he became depressed, he became ill. And of course, nobody cared for him. Everybody ignored him. So he was lying on the streets because they had nowhere to go. And one day, a wandering saint passes by. Remember, I said to you, at the right time, he will send someone to turn your life. Your job is not to give up. Total surrender. Parame Brahmane Kopina Sakta, turn it around. Ahame Brahmane Kopina Sakta. I am totally devoted to you, totally attached. Right? Turn it around. So he became very depressed, very ill and all that. So the saint came. He saw this. So he told his disciples, carry him to our ashram. So they looked after him in the ashram for a while. He was there and he was slowly recovering. And he was taken by this ashramic life, They looked after him well. He was well fed and all that. So when he was, a better able, he told, can I stay here? Can you teach me things? I would like to stay here and serve you. Can you impart some knowledge to me? And of course, the master then said, yes, okay, come here. He said, my child, be a lion, not a dog. The man did not understand. He said, what do you mean by this? Can you explain? What do you mean by be a lion and not a dog? So the master says, when you throw a ball at the dog runs after the ball. But when you throw a ball at the lion's gaze is on you, not the ball, because the lion knows you are the focus, you are the destiny, you are the end result, you are the consequence of that gaze. And until he gets you, he will not move. So he says, be a lion. The dog is constantly running after things that are thrown in front of it. Man's life is like that. He says, continuously running after things that are temporary, Focus on the permanent. You will be much happier. Become a lion. And the same thing Vivekananda said, remember, arise, O lions. All these years we are running around things like, like the dog running after the ball. We are running after this, bigger house, bigger car, bigger promotion, better friends, everything we are running after. Where is it going to get us? Permanence, impermanence, nitya, anitya. So he says you move from the level of anitya to nitya. Be focused on the goal like a lion. He says, don't get distracted by earthly things that come in your way and move you away from your goals. Be very clear. Develop that clarity of thought. Develop that inner strength. That can only be developed by regular practice of this. Yeah. For example, Swami has given us human values, right? Earlier I said to you, Satyam, Jnanam, Prema. 5 things, 5 human values. 5 senses, 5 human values. Finish. Right? So the essence is the world, things are temporary. If that's not the truth. What we experience daily is a relative truth. That is the cause of our ups and downs, our joys and sorrows. This is because that is not permanent. Once we realize the truth and we can distinguish by using buddhi and chitta between the nitya and the anitya, between the permanent and the impermanent, then the Brahman will show himself and the samsara will not affect us. Right? This can be, CIA, right? Constant integrated awareness, right? CIA, constant integrated awareness. Once Buddha was teaching his disciples meditation. But then he said, it is not just meditation that you must do when you meditate. You must become detached from the very act that you're doing. Then that's what is important, right? So he was looking at one particular person who was very fidgety, like when we sit and do meditation, right? You can reflect on yourself, actually, this, right? Become very fidgety. So Buddha went to him and asked him, why are you fidgeting? If you are affected by the externalities, you will never go internal. Once you go internal, you will never be affected by the externalities. And the bridge between this external to internal is your mind. So close your mind, open your eyes. Open your eyes to the inner strength that you have. So the man said, no, I'm fidgety because there was an ant coming. But I brushed it away and another ant came. I brushed it away and another ant came. I keep sweeping them away from my hands, but they keep coming back. So Buddha said, get up. So the disciple got up. And then Buddha saw there was one or two, sugar crystals lying on the floor. He says, take those sugar crystals and throw them far away. So the disciple took the sugar crystals and threw them far away, right? Now you sit, let me see if the ants come. Now he said, no ants came. Because the ants were not after him, the ants were after the sugar crystals, and he was between the sugar crystals and the ants. So the ants were climbing on him to go there. So Buddha said, what you have to learn from this is, you don't focus on the symptoms. You attack the cause. Cause of the ants was the sugar crystals. When you remove the sugar crystals, the ant will go away by itself. So then the question came from the disciple. He said, but master, how do we remove the cause? So now they're moving away from sugar crystal and ants, right? Now I'm coming to life. The effect only exists because of the cause. When the effect ends, the cause will end. But look at ourselves. Yet how much time and energy and effort do we focus on assuaging the very symptoms that makes us ignore the cause? So let me give you a trick. Most of you use computers, right? And you very often you use this Control-Alt-Delete, right? Yes or no? Control-Alt-Delete. And let me give you this approach. When adversity strikes, when you're faced with a problem, when you are faced with an issue, control your impulsive actions. Alternate them with intelligent inquiry and delete the root cause of the problem. Control, Alt, Delete. Simple. Because the root cause is the misapprehension of the world. And removing that ignorance or ajnana through the deletion of the cause gives you jnana. Right? And that requires change in your perception. This is what I call paradigm shift. And this is the last line of the 10th verse. He's saying, once you realize the truth, then the samsara will no longer affect you. Samsara will not affect you. And this is the same thing on the battlefield of Kurukshetra. Arjuna asks Krishna, he says, oh Lord, tell me what is the cause of this suffering in the world? And Krishna says, Kama esha, Krodha esha, Rajo Guna Samudbhavaha, Mahasano Mahapapma, Vidyenam Ihavairinam. Kama esha, Krodha esha, Rajo Guna Samudbhavaha, Mahasano Mahapapma, Vidyenam Ihavairinam. He said it's because of desire. The moment you can move away from this desire, nirmohatvam, then these modes of passion will not turn into wrath. That wrath will not turn into an all-devouring sinful enemy called ego, anger, and all this. This is what Shiva says in the Skanda Purana. He talks about Ashta dosha. Ashta means 8. Dosha means types of sins. Kama, Krodha, Lobha, Moha, Mada, Mamada, Matsira, Ahankara. 8 types of sins. Kama, Esha, Krodha, Esha. The two main types of enemies. Krishna says to Arjuna. Right? In Karma Yoga, chapter 3, this comes. So the inquiry. Even the Vedanta Sutras say, Atoha Brahma Jignasaha. It says, do self-inquiry. Self-inquiry, always go back. Because no one else will have the answers, but you will come up with the answers. When you self-inquire, Atoha Brahma Jignasaha, then the Brahmic energy will come out in you. When you pray to Brahma as the creator, and you pray to Vishnu as the preserver, and you pray to Shiva as the destroyer, right? Guru Brahma, Guru Vishnu, Guru Devo Maheshwaraha, right? What are you creating as Brahma? This realization. What are you preserving? That very realization that you create, that you are none other than that very Brahman. And what are you destroying as Maheshwara? All other thoughts that causes you pain and illness. See, Vivekananda says, right? And I'll end with this quote. He says, talk at least once with yourself. Talk at least once with yourself every day. Self-inquiry. He says, otherwise, you might miss meeting an intelligent person in your life. Oh, fantastic. He says, talk at least once with yourself every day. Talk at least once with yourself every day. Engage in self-inquiry. Otherwise, you will miss meeting a very intelligent person in your life. Yeah, that's exactly what he's saying. So, Bhaja Govindam, Bhaja Govindam, Govindam Bhaja Mudamate. When the appointed time of death comes to you, nothing else, no one else will ever save you. Thank you. I think I have covered verse 10. You must understand one thing, right? Each stanza can be spoken about endlessly, using different types of, illustrations and examples. But of course, if I take one stanza a week, then we're talking about 31 weeks. One whole year, this fellow is going to completely take over Saturdays. No chance, no chance. So, we do 3, and then we try and come over all the verses. So thank you for listening. Thank you for joining me again.